I just recorded a 30-minute video on my DSLR. 12 minutes got cut out and I don't look good. Something about the lighting, the angle, it just wasn't right. So we're gonna do this on the phone. I realize that that's not professional, but I'm not a professional. Hi, здравствуйте in today. That's hi in English and Russian and Estonian. Probably butchered the latter two, as my mother tongue is English, but hey, I tried. And every time I do an intro, maybe I'll get better at it. If you are a new friend and you don't watch my videos, on Mondays I post vlogs about my time here as a Fulbright scholar in Estonia. So I'm currently in I'm in a smaller city in Estonia called Narva. I decided that my channel needed a little bit more of my personality because all you really get from the vlogs is, you know, shots of a beautiful country and a voiceover. That's very like Vlogbrothers-esque, but that's more because it's easier for me to shoot that way, because as weird as it is for Americans to walk around in America with a phone pointed at their face and talking, it's even weirder in Estonia. I've had some strange looks when I tried to talk at the camera. I have been reading, consuming some really awesome media, and I think that it would be interesting to talk about those things on this channel as well. I view it as another sort of way of reflecting, like what did I learn while I was there, and how did I feel about it? And so the first book that I read, it was Gabbie Hanna's book called Adultolescence. Here's the cover. Ooh, very pretty. She did all the illustrations herself, which I think is awesome, especially because I'm pretty sure she did it on her iPad. And as someone that has dabbled in digital illustration, I can say that it is not easy. In terms of honesty, if it's not already apparent, I am a fan of Gabbie. I watch her vlogs and her regular videos. I am a person who tends to prefer vlogs, so I think I frequent her vlog channel more often than her actual channel. But the December of my senior year of college, I was in the long-distance relationship that I still am now. I was dealing with senior seminar, which at my particular college was extremely difficult. In my major, it was extremely difficult, and there were a bunch of little things that were sort of driving me nuts senior year, so I sort of ventured back into the world of YouTube, which I had kind of abandoned. I wasn't really watching it for the majority of my university years, and I found her vlogs, and the vlogs, more than the regular videos, really connected with me somehow. I find her very funny. I think that we grew up in similar ways. I don't know, I just feel like I connected with her. I probably projected a lot of myself onto her, and so since December of last year, I caught up. I think I've watched all of her videos, some of them probably twice, and so I am a fan. That was a very long way of saying that this is not a completely unbiased review, but I didn't love every single poem. There are things I really think could have been a lot better. It's very much constructive criticism, because overall I love it, and I would recommend it to specific people, like my friends and my little sister. I have my handy dandy notebook. I think that she leaned a little too hard into loving, like, Egghead by Bo Burnham. I forgot his name for a minute, that was ridiculous. Egghead by Bo Burnham and Shel Silverstein's Where the Sidewalk Ends, and Shel Silverstein also has a bunch of other really awesome poetry books. I'm sure you've heard of that, but they're great things to be inspired by. I'm not saying that that's not it, but she has such a great voice in certain poems, and in very many of them, that the ones that are in between that seem more forced and seem more wanting to fit this mold of like Shel Silverstein and Bo Burnham and like other people who write for like little kids. Like, I understand that part of the humor in it was that it was like these kind of dark things that were written in a way that you'd think a kid would really love it, but it's just kind of been done. I feel like she's so funny in some of the other poems, and I have some specific ones written down that I will talk about. I do think that she found her voice in some, and then she would lose it again in others, and because of that, I'm not sure that someone who was not a fan of hers, who just picked up the poem, the poetry book, Adultolescence, and read it, would really like it that much, because she started to really develop a great voice, but because it wasn't super consistent, I just don't know. It's possible. It's totally possible. I would be very interested in reading a review by someone that was not aware of her online presence. There are certain poems in here that I think seemed more like her. They seemed stronger. They seemed more developed. And I think that if she could really lean into those, it could be such a great book. Like, a second one could be incredible. So, let's get into specifics, shall we? My phone died, so I put on some lipstick and charged the phone, and the lipstick, I can promise you, will not be here by the end of the video. This stuff does not stay on my face, but I like the color so much. That's attractive. So Sleep was kind of meh for me, but then she had poems like Dreams and Oh Positive and, oh, what was the name of the other one? The advice poems that sounded like what I would think her stand-up would sound like. If I could imagine her stand-up and then imagine her stand-up in poetry form, these are those, and these are gold. Like, this is her voice. These are the poems that I personally really connected to, and those are the short examples. For me, they were like pleasant reminders more than they were advice, which I really enjoy. And for someone that's so far away from home, it's nice to have poems that I can read over and over that make me kind of laugh, but also speak like kind of an eerie truth that I really enjoy. Iron was a really good example of that. Why I, like, in the end decided that I really love this book is because there are poems like the one called Dreams, where it's so simple, but it's really real, and it sort of hits you hard. And then there are other poems like Stranger, which I think is by far my favorite poem in the whole book. I think it might have been, I connect it to Out Loud, her song, which I could make a whole video about how much I love that song. It's very good, in my opinion. But I really connect Stranger to that song. I don't remember which, I think the book came out, like, I think I read Stranger before Out Loud came out. While you're reading it, it's kind of like, okay, like average poem, right? And then the end happens, and you have to reread the whole, or at least I had to reread the whole thing. And I think that's really powerful. And if she can figure out a way to do that more often, which is probably one of the more challenging skills that she's honing, right? But if she can figure out how to do that more frequently with different word choice, I think part of what struck me about this book in a more negative way is I think some of her word choice was a little simple. And then there are poems like Iron, which I already talked about, and Belt, which they leave this interesting room where the reader can project themselves onto it, or like they get to enter the poem, or, you know, go into the poem. It's easy to view yourself in those situations. Those two poems are really accessible in a cool way, and it's not necessarily like hashtag relatable, it's genuinely relatable. And I think that this book does a really good job of sort of riding the line between comically hashtag relatable and actually relatable, which I like it a lot. Smile, that poem kind of follows Stranger in this way where you're sort of, you start reading and there's a point where like, oh, like you think you know where it's gonna go, and then it flips around and you're like, oh, okay, that's good, that's what you meant, okay, and you read it again and it's good. But I will say that comparing the two, Stranger was much stronger throughout the whole thing, and Smile got kind of weird. Like, Smile got honestly a little boring towards, like, it could have been shorter. I think it's because of the forced rhyming, like the like not natural, not quite as easy, not necessarily even easy to read, but the stuff that it didn't sound like her the same way that Stranger did. And I don't mean that to say that I know what she's supposed to sound like. What I mean is, as someone who writes mediocre poetry, but also someone who took multiple poetry classes, we always stressed the need to find a voice. Not to say that you have to write the same every time, but, you know, it's awesome if you can pick up a poem and tell that a certain person wrote it. And I think Stranger had that. I don't think Smile did. I think it makes sense, but who knows. One of my favorite sort of ending lines was something like, this is a very millennial metaphor for the human psyche. I think that's right. My iPod died, or I would have the book in front of me and I could show you. But that line killed me. I remember laughing out loud. There were multiple times where I laughed out loud, and I think that line was so good. It puts the book in the important place that it exists, where you... I've seen some really awesome videos recently, I'll link them below, about trying to separate the art of someone from the artist. And I do think that's something that Gabbie wanted to do. Like, I think that she, like I said at the beginning of the video, wanted people to be able to randomly pick up the book, not know that she was a YouTuber, and still really enjoy the book. And I think some people could do that. People who are invested in the internet and who do social media all the time, which is the majority of at least America. And I do think that with lines like that, you are really risking losing some readers, but then it makes the readers that love it so happy. Like, I do think that the risk does not outweigh the reward. Like, I think the reward makes up for the risk. I just said the same thing in 2 different ways. Overall, it's a really great book. I read it 3 times. I will probably read it again before I go home. And I wouldn't recommend it for like your uncle or like a random new friend, but I would highly recommend it for friends, your little siblings, people who might love her YouTube, and then people who, you know, frequent social media in general. I think that there's sort of a gist that you can get if you're in that club, and if you're not, I don't think it would be as enjoyable. But again, because I am that former group, I can't say for sure what the latter would think. Yeah, that's my review of Adultolescence by Gabbie Hanna. I have recently also read John Green's Turtles All the Way Down, and I purchased Dodie's Secrets for the Mad. YouTube is weirdly more easily accessible to me than a lot of other, like even Netflix, because I'm working strange hours, and I'm working not at a regular schedule, so it's hard for me to sit down and really invest in like multiple episodes of a show. I did finish Stranger Things, but YouTube has been this really easily consumable thing in my life, and because I'm also making YouTube videos, I think I've been sort of attracted to reading books by YouTubers. I was gonna read John Green's books anyway, because I always read John Green books, but if you would like me to review those other 2 books I mentioned, Turtles All the Way Down and Secrets for the Mad, please let me know, and I will do so. I'll probably do it even if you don't let me know, because I would like to, but I'm gonna pretend like it's kind of a democracy. Who knows? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys on Monday. This is just the introduction, and it's already almost 10 minutes long, so sorry, editing Jill, in the future. I apologize. Where was I? Was I sitting here? I hope I was sitting here. I don't know.